Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Tuesday, April 15th, tax day, I guess, for anybody who hasn't gotten that done yet. This is episode number 291, and we're kind of getting used to this video thing now. So we got a great show for you tonight. I first bring my brother Jeff in. Hey, Jeff.
Rod.
How things going?
Yeah, good. We're in the final countdown to D-Day.
That's right. And draft is just what about 9 days? 9 days
a little
away.
over a week away now.
Yeah. So we've got a great guest, and he's we'll call him a veteran, but we've been lucky enough to have him on the podcast for a number of years, and excited to bring him back in. Emory Hunt. You follow Emory at F Ball Game Plan. Emory is the czar of the playbook. You can find his work at CBS Sports HQ and at Sportsline. Emory, how are things going?
Things are going great, man. As always, I appreciate y'all bringing me on the show.
Yeah, we love having you. Yeah, definitely. We love you carving out a little bit of time for us. So first things first. You've got your draft guide out, and the 2025 version, and I guess it's 1,200 scouting reports this year.
Yes,
or over
1,200. Yeah, over 1,200, and also included in that number is over 50 CFL draft prospects as well. So we're excited about this year's edition because the largest one we've done. We've broken our own record. But it's cool because, again, you get a good gauge of who's out there, what's out there, and how good and deep the talent is. And folks that have purchased my draft guide from 2020 to now will be holding over 5,400 individual scouting reports at their fingertips. So they can go get that at footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide.
That's right. Excellent. And you can find all your stuff at, of course, on X at F Ball Game Plan, right? If they didn't get that, but we'll say that again a little bit later too. So we're excited to talk some draft with you here, and it's coming up in just over a week. So I always like to ask you, where are you going to be for the draft this year, Emory?
I'll be down in our Fort Lauderdale studios at CBS Sports HQ. Mostly during the day on day 2 coverage, day 3 coverage, and then also recap the following day, which would be Sunday. So looking forward to it, getting down there, and again, it's a marathon, but it's the ending show of the lead up process, which is always great to see.
You can always sleep, in a few weeks, right? So Jeff just actually sent me your mock that came out. So we were looking at that. Yeah, well, I hadn't had a chance to look. I just got off work just about an hour ago. So we looked at that. So you have. Let me put it this way: you did this mock. You did this as who you think the team should take, right? Not necessarily who you think they're going to take.
Right. What I would do as the GM.
Okay.
That's how I always do a mock draft. Is because why do a mock draft? I know everyone loves to play like they have sources. Why do a mock draft based on rumors and hearsay and what you read on Twitter? The people that follow you and people that read you and consume your content, they do that because they like how you think or like how you portray things. So why do a mock draft that's not based off what you think or what you would do?
That makes a lot of sense because, the rumors and the teams are out there trying to, at least some of them, are trying to kind of veil what they're going to do anyways, right? A few of them. Maybe.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like it's, why, like today must have been Tyler Shuck Day because you had 3 separate reporters saying, well, I talked to a GM and a scout that told me, or a coach that told me that they had Shuck as a top quarterback in the class. Like all 3 of y'all, 3 separate times today, all talked to come on, man. Like
Yeah. So you have the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders at number 2. I don't think you had any trades in this, so you just
I had a few trades in there. I just to spice it up a little bit, but yeah, but yeah, have them taking Shedeur number 2.
And I like your reasoning, Emory. I mean, why not take a quarterback when we desperately need one? And he is NFL ready, right?
His floor is the highest, and like I said in the article, it's the most pro-ready quarterback since Andrew Luck. And people bristle at that because they don't like Dion, and they're taking their disdain for him out on his son. But if Jackson Dart had Shedeur Sanders tape, people would say he should go pick number 0. Like just the draft starts at 2. You know what I'm saying? Because look at just the football part. Shedeur is concise. He's accurate. He's consistent. He shows up in those situational football moments that you expect quarterbacks to show up in. Every time we tuned into a Colorado game, we saw them backed up, on the scoreboard. And also sometimes, they need to go 98 yards to tie the game. And they go 98 yards and tie the game. You know what I'm saying? Because this dude is ice cold in the most crucial moments. And last year, all you heard those same folks say, oh, well, you got to play well from the pocket. You got to be able to stand tall in the pocket and work within the pocket. You can't really go off script. It's about playing in the pocket. Now, this year, it's about you got to be able to play outside the pocket. You got to be able to go off script. You got to be able to do which one is it? Like, I can't keep
pat
up.
The ball.
Can't pat the ball. He takes sacks. It's like, and he doesn't have a strong arm. I don't know if he could play in the cold. I guess Colorado is right next to Puerto Rico. I just don't get the reasoning these folks have. I'd rather folks just come out and say, you know what? I don't too much care for his dad, so I don't like his son. I'd be like, you know what? I respect that. At least you're honest. Because if it's about the football, it makes no sense. Especially when you look at Cleveland's depth chart. It literally is a plug-and-play fit.
Yeah. What's interesting, and I guess that's what makes this the silly season, right, is that at any point during last football season, if you'd ask the Browns fan how they would like to have Shedeur Sanders as their quarterback next season, I think universally we all would have said, man, that would be great. We would love to be in a position to get him. We don't think we'll be bad enough to get him, right? And then all of this, like you said, starts to come out between the end of the football season and draft day, where it's really more about tearing players down, finding their weaknesses, right? And we start to hear all that chatter, and we lose sight of, hey, what really is our team's number one need? And the number one need is a long-term quarterback, right?
Yeah. Now the main question is anybody good enough to take it to?
Right. Yeah. We don't think anyone's good enough right now. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. So we'll get back to quarterback a little bit, but I wanted to ask you about running back and the running back room for the Browns, and because this draft class is loaded with running backs, but you've probably got 150 of them in your guide, I bet, if not more. So, anyways, the Browns, we hear that Nick Chubb is probably going to be signed, but there's nothing sure there. Okay, so I guess my question is, if you're looking at this draft two different ways, the Browns just having Jerome Ford, or the Browns having Jerome Ford and knowing that they're going to sign Nick Chubb at some point, what players would you see as the best fit for the running back room for the Browns going forward? You're more or less having a chance to build this running back room, because Jerome Ford is in the last year of his contract too. Yeah. And you need somebody to replace Nick Chubb or be that primary back at some point going forward, even if it's not this season. So what would your thoughts be as to how to look at this draft as far as running back for the Browns?
We could probably see the Browns maybe triple down on tailbacks in this class, or definitely be in the market for a high-level priority free agent once the draft winds down. Because when you think about, we may see two running backs going round one, Ashton Genty and perhaps Emory and Hampton. Could even potentially see three That's where it gets a little bit tricky if you're the Browns, because Travion Henderson, to me, has first-round talent and could potentially go in the first round, whether it's by a team like Denver or a team with a trade back into the first-round situation, perhaps even the Browns, because when you get a guy like him, he has the ability to hit the home run. He's great in pass pro and has gotten better every year, has the vision, all the things that you want to see in the running back half. So he could be one guy that could be a potential answer. And even if you do sign Nick Chubb, you still don't know which version of Nick Chubb you're getting. Now, it's hard to count out Nick Chubb because how physically gifted he is in terms of, how he takes care of his body. But we saw last year, although working back from the injury, he wasn't really the same, which is why they felt comfortable letting him go test free agency. But outside of that, you got Damian Martinez, maybe on, late day 2. That's an option. You also look at somebody like Ollie Gordon, another big physical back. Those are your type of foundational guys. Jaquindon Jackson on day 3 out of Arkansas, a big back that has good vision, good footwork to help keep your offense on pace. And you compare those up with some of these speed guys like a Land Larison out of UC Davis, or like a guy in Marcus Yarns out of Delaware. Guys that can be the Pierre Strong type, that can be a good complement to a bruiser back. So there's an assortment of options and pathways the Browns can travel down to accomplish their goal of replenishing, restocking, retooling this running back room.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Emory, I've seen Devin Neal out of Kansas comp to early career Kareem Hunt. I don't know how you feel about that, but that worked pretty well for us back in 2020 as the complementary piece to Nick Chubb. Do you see that same kind of fit?
I don't see him as a Kareem Hunt type. I do see him as someone that does have the ability to affect the game on both sides of offense, as a receiver and also as a run. I think Hunt was a little bit more physical. Neal is the one that'll try to make you miss. He'll slip out a couple of tackles. He won't physically impose his will on defenders. But he's a very good back. He's well built, 5'10", 215. Good elusiveness, good ability as a receiver. We saw him just be a tremendous threat in that Kansas backfield. So again, you're talking about running backs like him. You're talking about guys like Phil Maffa, who's a physical presence, more of a goal line bruiser. These type of guys. This backfield class, Khalil Mullins of Michigan, Donovan Edwards. So this draft, to me, at the running back position, reminds me a lot of the 2017 class that had a bevy of backs: Fournette, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Tariq Cohen, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones, Tariq Cohen. Like there was a bevy of backs in 2017.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to be too disappointed no matter who we come out of this draft with.
Yeah, that's how it seems. So Emory, the Browns have obviously a choice at 2. And everybody's divided on this. It really doesn't matter. The Browns are going to do what they want to do, whether they take Shedeur Sanders. There's a lot of talk about Travis Hunter. Some of the other talk is starting to fade a little bit based on some of the moves the Browns have made. That if they go a different direction, other than Sanders at 2, who do you think would be a good fit for the Browns at quarterback at one of their other draft spots? And I know it depends how the draft goes and that, but just for Stefanski and to play in Cleveland, who are some quarterbacks that you think might be good for the Browns if they don't take 1 and 2?
I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that question, because that's just like the most egregious mistake. But in order to play in Cleveland, you got to have a certain level of mental toughness and being able to work through adversity. And there are only 2 other QBs right now that are options to do that outside of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Jalen Milroe, because of how he worked through things at Alabama, how smart of a kid he is, winning the academic Heisman. Shows you he's able to stay focused on the most important task while also being highly effective as a football player. Taking care of his business in the classroom, getting better on the football field. And another one is, very much built for Cleveland is Brady Cook out of Missouri. We've seen him burst onto the scene with an upset win in his first start, I believe, against Arkansas in 2021, when they couldn't stop him on third downs because he kept scrambling and picking up yards with his legs. And then we saw him this year playing the entire season banged up, but we saw him, get knocked out of the Auburn game, carted off, and then comes back in the game and leads them down to a victory. So Brady Cook is someone that is battle tested. He's built for the moment. He rode the wave of adversity and success at Missouri. Those two guys, to me, fit best in Cleveland in terms of what they can do because of how they've handled their college career. Things wasn't always great, and things will not always be great, which is why I like the Shedeur Sanders fit in Cleveland. I like a Cam Ward fit in Cleveland. I like Milroe and Brady Cook because of how their careers went. Everything wasn't laid out for them perfectly. You got to go through some stuff, and they did that and came out on the other side and was really and look, and their tape looks like guys that are ready to go and play in the NFL.
Sounds like you're expecting our rookie quarterback to play a lot of games this year.
Well, I mean, I know people are fawning over the Flacco nostalgia as if he didn't throw 7 picks in that playoff game.
Something like that.
So Flacco's going to start probably, and Kenny Pickett is going to play himself out the role because, as Pickett just stays banged up, and so you can't really depend on, him. Another guy that's kind of mentally tough I want to mention is Quinn Ewers. But again, same thing with Pickett. Like he stays banged up. Like you got to be able to be available. And we saw the mental toughness you had to have if you're Quinn Ewers, knowing that everybody wants to see your backup, and all you do is go out there and lead your team to back-to-back playoff performances. He gets to the postseason to keep Arch Manning on the side, knowing that's what everybody wants to see. So to have that right there in your face constantly and being able to function through that, knocking it out the way, I don't mind Quinn Ewers either.
Yeah.
That does say a lot about his toughness. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Hey, before we move on to a couple other players, Emory, I just want to go back to your mock real quick. There's a couple things I'd like to highlight that I thought were really fun. Number one, you have the Raiders taking Tet McMillan with the 6th pick, which is very un-Raiders-like. Taking a guy who can play in the first round and not reaching. But what that did was it freed up Ashton Genty to fall to the Bears, which I absolutely love the thought of Ashton Genty and Caleb Williams reinventing that offense in Chicago. I think that'll be really fun to watch. And then the Jags trading down to with Carolina, swapping defensive line players. I thought that was a brilliant move. And the last one, with your permission, I would just like to read what you wrote about Donovan Jackson going to the Bengals with the 17th pick. You mentioned about how he made himself a bunch of money this year by playing guard and tackle. And I thought this was hilarious. You said, having the ability to play guard or tackle is worth its weight in gold. Having that ability for the Bengals is worth its weight in plutonium. That's hilarious. As a Browns fan, we love anybody who rags on the Bengals, Emory.
We did a video mock draft on CBS Sports Network, I want to say 2 days ago, and we had a situation where Amon Minbu fell to the Bengals, and Mike Renner was like, "Oh, this is a no-brainer going up there. They need an offense." I said, "Man, I agree with you, Mike, but I find it fascinating. We can identify that the Bengals need an offensive lineman, and it's a no-brainer. Then why can't we use that same logic for the Browns at number 2 needing a quarterback. Like it defies logic. Like it is right there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
And the reason why I did the reason why I did the and this was my thought process. I appreciate you asking me that about the mock, right? Because all the mock people start to see too many mocks and they start to believe this is what's going to happen, right? So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But my thought is, okay, if we're doing the mock draft like this and you see Abdul Carter starting to fall, you know Carolina needs a pass rusher. Jacksonville could have stayed there and taken him, but do you really want to kick Trayvon Walker inside, who's starting to continue to grow in the right direction as an edge? Do you want to have that much money invested in edge rushers, knowing you need a defensive tackle? So if you know you need a defensive tackle and you know Carolina is desperate, swap picks, pick up some assets. You still get your guy while they get what they want, and you don't have to force the 5th pick when you could have got, the whole better value, right? And so that's why I did that. And with the Raiders, everyone's like, oh, they got to get Gentry. Like, man, have you looked at their receiving core? Like they need a receiver too. You know what I'm saying? Everybody says it's a deep back class. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's wait on the back and let's get one of the top guys, if not the top guy right now while we can.
Yeah, that would actually shock me if the Raiders did that, but it's just because of their history. But I like it. So hey, you also have a favorite player of mine, Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. You have him going number 28 to the Lions, which I'm sure would disappoint pretty much almost every Browns fan because that's who we would like to see there at 33 for us. Interestingly, you have him going ahead of Armand Bamboo and Josh Simmons, so that tells me how much you think of him as well. When the Browns get or when the draft gets to number 33 in your mock and the Browns are on the clock with who's left there, obviously our needs are left tackle, free safety. Who do you like for us there? I mean, I would love to have Connerly. I'd love to have one of the top safeties. But what direction do you think they need to go then after taking Shedeur at number 2?
I would either go, if he's still there, Josh Simmons. I think I gave him to somebody in that.
You had him at the last pick.
Right. So that's a sweet spot. Maybe they could trade back in, but Philly usually takes the good player, right? But how about Cameron Williams of Texas? His tape is fantastic. I love his tape. Also, how about this? Watching their tape, I was more impressed with how they went about their work because they were so consistent. But there's 2 6'8" tackles in the class that play like they're 6'5", and Ozzie Trapillo of Boston College and Holland Pierce out of Rutgers. To see both guys be so consistent with their hands inside, good on the move, good athleticism, good knee bend, and do a great job playing for 2 NFL coaches. And we know Greg Schiano, if you got a guy coming from Rutgers, I don't even have to see their tape. Sign me up because I know they're going to be well prepared and ready to go. And Isaac Capillo played for Bill O'Brien in that offense that did a lot of movement. And he's a 6'8" dude that's able to block well on the perimeter. Very good tackle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, those are guys. So again, the draft, I know mock drafts is only focused on one round and everybody see the same 32 names. So they start to get fixated on those guys and forget that the draft is 7 rounds and has over 5,000 prospects eligible for the draft. And there's a lot of good football players still left on the board.
Yeah. I mean, I like Josh Simmons because of the versatility, right? Part of the problem, I think, is the Browns don't have a left tackle. We don't have a left tackle on our roster right now. I mean, not a what I would consider a long-term answer at left tackle, right? So we really need to find one in this draft without going out and grabbing another right tackle and moving him to left, in my mind. And maybe that can work for some of these guys, but we're just a little probably snake bit with the Jed Wills experiment, right? So I'm kind of curious, Wyatt Millum a few months ago was sort of in the first round conversation as one of the top tackles, and then he went and played guard at the Senior Bowl. Where do you think he settles out?
That's a great question. I would probably say if a guy goes and plays that, at the Senior Bowl, he's probably got a bug in his ear from scouts saying this is where we kind of project you to be. So start getting some reps there. It's almost like when we saw Gray Zabel get a lot of reps at center. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, all right, well, I guess he's going to be there, but I kind of like him at guard. You know, so it's weird. So I think having the versatility and flexibility gives you more value, especially if you're able to show that you can do it. Like we saw at the East-West Shrine Bowl with Marcus Ware out of Montana State, who was, tackled and also played some guard, but was asked to play center there at the East-West Shrine Bowl and was able to hold his own. So it gives you an idea of, okay, this guy can be a center for us, and start.
Yeah. Probably cost him some money though, right?
Well, I mean, value, versatility, that's going to elevate your status. You're going to end up making more money because you're so valuable.
Right. Yeah. Hey, we're running a little short on time, Emory, but I want to ask you before we let you go, because I think I've asked you this every year for the last 3 years at least. Where do the Browns go find a number 2 tight end? I mean, we got David Njoku, and really not a lot after that. And this draft is loaded with tight ends. I've been screaming for a tight end for years now. We just keep passing on that. There's an awful lot of really nice looking tight ends in this draft, depending on how high you want to take one, right? Yep. What do you think of some of the later tight ends? Like, and I know, the second tier, Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson are the real athletic guys, right? The second tier, if I'm looking for a number 2, I've already got that real athletic guy. Throw out some names: Mitchell Evans, Luke Lachey, and Jackson Hawes, the road grader. Which guy do you see fitting opposite David Njoku in our system? Knowing we're going to probably be a lot more heavy this year.
Hawes is the best blocker, arguably, out the bunch. And that's the one that kind of complements Njoku well. If you wanted a flex guy, Brenning Stool from Clemson is a fantastic receiver. And if you're looking for someone that is underrated, Ben Urasek, people forget how great of a receiver he was at Stanford because he transfers to Georgia and all they asked him to do is block. So he improved on his blocking, but people forgot how good of a receiver he is. That's another one I like. I'll give you a small school guy, which is who stood out to me over the course of the All-Star circuit. And a cool story was Mitchell Van Voren out of St. Norbert, Division III program, 6'4", about 250, fluid athlete, catch the ball really well. At the College Gridiron Showcase, I'm watching him win one-on-one versus FBS guys, and I'm like, wow, this guy is a tremendous athlete. He's moving fluid. Maybe I'm just on this All-Star game high, right? And so when I go back to the room to dig up his film, I see that he only played one season at St. Norbert, and he had 500 yards and 10 touchdowns, right? I'm like, damn, we only played 1 year. Where? That's because he spent the previous 4 years as an all Big East 400-meter hurdler at Marquette. So you have a dude that's 6'4", 250. I can only imagine what that was like. Coming out there and you're like, oh, bro, the shot put over that way. And he out there lined up next to you. You're like, man, I know you know about to run these hurdles. And he just sometimes, all conference splits. Sometimes he won a meet or two. And it's like, wow. So that fluid 400-meter hurdles, that's crazy. So that's one of those guys keep an eye on.
Impressive.
Yeah. Hey, you might have just named the UDFA that makes our roster this year. That's what's been happening in the last few years.
Let's hope. Hey, Emory. You kind of went over 2 and 33. If you were to fill in the Browns maybe next 3 spots in the draft, the 67, 94, maybe 104, how would you like to see the Browns fill that out? I'm thinking a lot of offense, but what direction would you go if you were the GM?
I think the Browns have a lot more talent than people, but don't understand. They don't give them enough credit for. Getting Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a fantastic free agent signing. Like, that's a untapped resource as a pass rusher. So I would like to, especially if they go Shedeur Sanders too, then find him weapons, running back, load up on another tight end, get another couple of receivers, there are going to be some guys, probably preferably one of his guys, maybe a LeJontay Wester or something like that, Jimmy Horn, which both guys actually enhance your return game. I would like to see them go running back, receiver, tight end. You always going to need some off-ball linebackers just in case guys get banged up, go through the ringer. There's, a bunch of these. I think this is one of the better more vast linebacker crops that we've seen. Another small school guy to keep an eye on, Hector Johnson out of Endicott, was a hand in the dirt defensive end, Division III Endicott up in Massachusetts, but he's going to transition to off-ball back. He's only like 6 feet 230, but he can move. He has great change of direction skills, good fluidity. So he's going to be a very good linebacker, a good run and chase backer. So I would like to see them go that route. Always add a corner, because you can't have enough guys out there to have length and athleticism. But definitely, if they go quarterback, you got to find weapons to make him happy, which is O-line, running back, and wide receiver. And to you guys' point, another tight end. Just stockpile offensive weapons. I think defensively you can get by. Because defense is just, if you got a lead, you can go out there and play excellent defense, because now you made the other team's offense one-dimensional. The Browns got pieces on defense. Offensively, it's about, can they get the quarterback to, raise the level of play of what they have on offense. And I think if you go quarterback at 2, i.e. Shedeur Sanders, you have a chance to really become a factor in the AFC.
Yeah. We got to get out of our own way on offense.
Yeah, that's right.
That's been
okay. So everybody can, again, on the draft guide, that's footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide, or they can check you out on X at FBallGamePlan. Anything else you'd like to leave the Browns fans with, Emory?
They can't mess this up if they go with Shedeur at 2. This is a layup. If I told you have a chance to get the carbon copy of Joe Burrow, you would take that at number 2 because you think that guy would go number 1. But here's an opportunity, and the Browns fans have to really – Travis Hunter is a great piece to have. Abdul Carter, wow, that's a fun piece to have. But you can't go out there and win games 6-5. Like, you need a quarterback. You saw what happened when the offense had Jameis in there. At least the offense was competitive and showed you the potential, right? So imagine if you got a guy that didn't make mistakes with the football, left college football as the number 1 overall player in completion percentage in college football history. And the crazy part is he only played 2 years of FBS ball. So when you look at his Jackson State numbers, they're even more insane. This dude has been taught by Tom Brady, taught by Jeff Blake. Brett Favre had a hand in there as well. He has been groomed to be this guy. And I think back in 2017 or 18, I was on this show and other Browns shows telling the Browns, take Saquon at number 1, because you can get the best quarterback in number 4, and that was Lamar Jackson. Everybody thought I was crazy. Now imagine if they would have, what I'm saying? So this is,
you would have to hang on to him this long, Emory.
Man. So I would just say, like, at the end of the day, this is Shedeur is a guy. Him and Cam Ward would have gone top 5 in last year's class. So don't let people tell you this class is junk. Like, those 2 dudes can legit play, and if you miss out on Cam, Shedeur is right there for the taking.
All right. It's always great catching up with you, Emory. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys as always for having on.
Nice to see you again, Emory.
Yeah,
Be
great
well.
seeing you.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Well, I guess we're going to have to adjust our expectations now, huh?
A little bit. Yeah, well, the thing is, we've been told Travis Hunter now for the past couple of weeks, and
Right.
I think that's what a lot of people are expecting.
Right.
And I just, like you said, it is silly season. I don't think you can listen to any of the noise. I think the Browns have been very good at keeping things quiet.
Mm-hmm.
At at letting people kind of think what they want, at just kind of letting stories develop and not really, and not saying anything about any of it. They've talked to just about every player who could go top 15 in this class, I think. So
yeah.
So I don't think we know what's going to happen.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like we talked about with the mock last week, Abdul Carter. You can't argue with a top 5 pick. No matter who we end up with, if we stay at 2, we're going to end up with what should be a premier type player.
Yeah.
And if it ends up being a quarterback and he turns out to be a premier player, everybody will be through the roof excited. If he goes out there and shits the bed, then we're all idiots, right?
Right.
Whoever that player is, right? So that's the fear. The fear is that they're going to screw this up somehow.
I think the fan base is afraid of that all the time. That no matter what we do, it's not going to work out well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you still got to play the game, and I'm talking the draft game. You still got to put a team together. You still have to take chances. There are no sure things in the draft. There are no sure things when you sign free agents, and there are no sure things in games. So these guys have to do their best, and at least it feels like they have checked all of these players out.
Right.
Like they have spent a ton of time on this, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to feel like whatever direction they go, they've put the right amount of thought into it, or as much as possible into it.
Yeah.
So whether you agree with it or not, you have to feel like they didn't just, ask some homeless guy, right?
Right. Yeah.
That the right amount of preparation's been done, and that there's a reason why they made the pick, and that they weren't just doing it because they felt like this is the pick we've got to make.
Right.
And that's all I've asked through this process is I don't want them taking a quarterback because they feel like they got to take a quarterback, even if he's the 30th best prospect in the draft.
Right.
And not a guy who you really like or can fit your system, but he's the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Man, if they like him, I got no problem with him taking the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, there are problems with all of these 3 guys. Abdul Carter, it's now there's question, people worried about the injury and his size and how often is he going to be on the field and what position is he going to play. Well, in reality, probably none of that stuff's going to matter. He's probably going to be a great player.
Yeah. Right.
Travis Hunter, does he want to play wide receiver or cornerback? Is he going to be mad if he only plays one? The guy's probably going to be a great player no matter what. Right.
Right.
And if they take Shedeur Sanders, hopefully it translates to the NFL and he ends up being a good player for the Browns. I mean, what else can you say?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to get behind it no matter who they pick.
Right.
Because that's what we do as fans. So we can talk ourselves into any of those players. I think for me, the desire to trade down for more assets is strictly because I'm greedy. I want us to get a whole bunch of good players out of this draft and have a better chance of not screwing something up. If we take a bunch of players slightly later in the draft, the chances are better that we're going to come out of it with some really good players versus maybe one awesome player and one okay player.
Yeah. I mean, the more top 100 picks, especially, right?
Right. Yeah. As a fan, I could be greedy like that and say, for me, the perfect draft would be to fix every problem, in the draft. But realistically, you're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So I can get behind taking Shedeur for this reason. If they make the pick at number 2 for Shedeur, and they have the right system and process in place to make him successful. Okay, now that's, we have a pretty experienced offensive line. We give him the weapons that Emory was talking about, and we don't force him. We give him some time with the other 2 quarterbacks that we have on the roster early in the season, at least. We are now committed to a franchise quarterback for 5 years, which means we should be committed to a regime for 5 years. And that means that Kevin Stefanski is getting his quarterback that he likes, that he can start fresh with and build around the way he wants to. And it lets Andrew Berry refresh the rest of the roster to complement that quarterback. And, if all of those things line up, it means that they've actually had a chance to do it right for once. To take the quarterback that they believe in and make all those other things happen. And for me, as a long-suffering Browns fan, I'd love to see that happen just one time in my life, where they actually, had a long-term plan like that and saw it through.
Yeah, and and that's something we really haven't talked about. This whole idea of Stefanski and this regime, and and Jared brought it up last week, about this being year 1 for these guys, more than and I think we talked about this a while ago, that it just plain didn't make sense to keep these guys around for 1 year and to give them this draft capital. So I think we kind of felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you wonder if with the number 2 pick, if there's more of a desire to take a quarterback, because taking a quarterback think about this, taking a quarterback with this regime now gets the clock started. Whereas if they don't take a quarterback and they take a quarterback at 67 or even later, you're kicking the can on the regime another year.
That's true.
Essentially. So you wonder if that's part of the equation, part of the discussion, or at least somewhere in somebody's mind that we're going to do this, but you guys need to bring a quarterback in who's going to be your guy.
Right.
And that could even be, that could be somebody at 33, I guess, in theory.
Yeah. I think
you get past that. Yeah.
Right. If you take a guy later in the first round, it's a guy that you're probably not expecting to play much right away, at least not for a while.
Right. So that probably still just pushes you into next year.
Yeah.
But you're still in that 5-year. Well, you're still in that 5-year window.
Right.
With a guy.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're, if you draft somebody, whoever, any of those other guys, Kyle McCord or somebody in the, third or fourth round.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily vested in him. Yeah, you're using capital on him, but you're not saying that this is my guy.
Yeah, you're just rolling the dice.
Yeah, you're hoping he does well.
Yeah.
But you're not putting all of your hope into him as your franchise guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we do that. We go. All put all our eggs in Shedeur basket. You have to believe that they want it. They want that to be their guy, and they're going to invest around that happening. If they don't do it, then it tells you that they didn't believe in him. So you'll know by the time that second pick rolls around how they view Shedeur, and who's right in this equation. Okay,
right.
In terms of evaluating him, at least from our perspective, from the Browns' perspective. maybe other teams in the league would still see him as a number 2. But it tells you that okay, we're not ready to risk our career on this guy.
Right? Yeah, we're not ready to use that much draft capital on this particular quarterback. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that unfolds, and whether the Browns stay there and make that kind of a commitment, or whether they do. In my mind, the much easier thing to do would be to trade down for more assets and just collect really good football players in bigger quantities and try to make this team really solid. But like Jared said last week, he said Browns don't want to be good; they want to be great. So if that's the case, then you got to take a quarterback.
Yeah, I think a couple things there. You can take if you want to be great, rather than good, you can take the quarterback, or you can be looking at the trade down that keeps you high enough to still get somebody that you deem as a great player, and add capital for 26 because you feel like that's when you're going to go for your QB. Whether that's a smart move or not is to discuss later.
Right. That's another show.
That's another show. But yeah, trading from 1 down to 10 to add, a second and a fourth rounder. I don't know about that, but if I can pick up a second, a second rounder or a third rounder this year and a first rounder next year, from somebody I think is not going to win a ton of games this season.
Right.
That becomes a little bit easier deal to think about, especially if you like some players that might be around in that range.
In the quarterback class next year.
And the quarterback class next year and the draft this year, to where you think you're still going to get a guy that can make a difference for you this year.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of ways to look at it, and I'm sure the Browns will run 5 million scenarios. They probably already have.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, you mentioned some news.
Well, just a couple minor things been going on this week. The Browns signed Julian Okwara. So Okwara is a little shorter than Okoronkwo, so whoever sews the name on the back of the jersey will probably save a little time. But this is the third guy now that the Browns have on the roster of the Abdul Carter body type, which I think is kind of interesting because we've seen them do this in the past, right? Where they just stockpile a particular type player that are almost carbon copies of each other, right? Right. So now we've got 3 guys like this that would be your third down designated pass rush specialists. Does that mean that Abdul Carter is off the table, or does that mean that we're bringing all these guys in to find a backup for Abdul Carter because that's our defensive game plan going forward? Okay, I guess it depends on whose article you read.
Are we carrying 7 defensive ends next season?
Realistically, one of those guys is going to make the team, right? Maybe 2, but more than likely 1.
Yeah,
it's just fascinating to see how they're stockpiling certain positions right now, and completely ignoring other ones. So they also had Rayshon Jenkins in, veteran safety. Could be this year's Rodney McLeod if they do come to an agreement with him. They haven't yet. I think it's good to have a veteran safety.
I agree.
Rodney McLeod was one of the most valuable players on the defense last year. I thought, stepped in when other guys went down and played pretty well. That's the kind of guy you want to find.
Yeah, particularly if you are going to be drafting a guy to play free safety, who you think is going to be a free safety of the future. A guy like that could be invaluable to have on the team.
Yeah.
Both to play and to kind of do a little bit of mentoring.
Sure. Yeah. And then the last bit of news is, it's kind of been all over the place that Derek Carr has a shoulder injury that's been lingering for a really long time. And sounds like now he might have to have surgery and could potentially miss the 25 season. We talked quite a bit about Derek Carr a few months ago, saying that, that could be our bridge quarterback if we could put something together with New Orleans. And, like I told Jeremy, sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make.
Right.
So Derek Carr is probably not going to play this year, which means that the Saints are probably going to be in the market for a quarterback as well. So that just adds another team to the mix in terms of what quarterbacks will be available later in the draft.
The Saints pick where, like, what, nine or
eight or nine,
like
eight or nine, something like that. Yeah. Let me see here.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who else they have on the roster. I don't know if they have anybody.
Yeah,
I can't say I know the Saints roster. They pick 8.
Okay. No, Saints pick 9. Excuse me. Yeah,
9. Okay. So yeah, a couple things. I mean, would the Saints be willing to throw a boatload at that number 2 pick? Is one question. Right. Would they be willing to, maybe trade for a quarterback that we have on our roster already? I don't know who the Saints have on their roster, without digging that up. But it could open some options. I mean, it's funny. I can laugh about us trading a quarterback like we are at such a spot of strength right now in the quarterback room. But right. I mean, people are so upset with Kenny Pickett coming in. Maybe we could recoup a 5th rounder, and draft 2 quarterbacks and go with Flacco and 2 rookies. But that's probably not going to happen. But right. I think the swap from 2 to 9. I mean, the Browns would have to get quite a bit of capital, I would think, to drop down to 9.
Yeah.
And they would also have to not think that Shedeur is their guy.
Right. So the Flacco signing actually happened after we recorded last week. So we really didn't talk about it.
Well, true.
I mean, so for me, I was of the belief that there was no rush to sign a veteran quarterback. Apparently, they wanted to make sure that the Steelers or the Vikings or somebody else didn't go get him because they put that much value on a 40-year-old guy.
40-year-old, who really didn't play that well last year.
Right. Right. And just like Emory said, through 2 pick sixes in our last playoff game. I was a bit surprised that they pulled the trigger on that so quickly, but it did tell me a couple of things about where they see the quarterback position. And if you're thinking seriously about playing a rookie quarterback this year, those 2 guys make a lot of sense, Flacco and Pickett. If you're really expecting to play a rookie quarterback, okay, if you're picking a quarterback and shelving him and bringing him along slowly, you could make a case for Flacco, I guess, as a mentor, but
maybe,
he's coming here because he wants to start, and right. Pickett came here
because he wants to start
traded, but he said he wants to start as well, right? So both of those guys want to start. They don't want to be mentoring a rookie and developing a kid who's going to start next year, and so it tells me that the Browns probably think that whatever quarterback they draft is going to play quite a bit late in the season. And that forget the whole idea that we get quarterbacks hurt and we go through 3 or 4 quarterbacks a year anyway. But for the plan to go into the season believing that means that you have to have a play-ready quarterback. That probably, for me, that takes several guys out of consideration as potential quarterbacks for us who really would benefit from not playing at all this season.
Like Milroe.
It means you're going to carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Milroe, Dart, the next 3 or 4 guys, with the exception of Tyler Shuck, really to me would benefit from a redshirt season.
Yeah.
If so, it means Sanders, Shuck, and then maybe 1 or 2 guys later. McCord, like you said before, would be guys that would be ready to play this year. But other than Shuck, who do you really see as a long-term answer? I don't think, Shuck is the only guy that could be a somewhat long-term answer, even though he's 25 years old. You could get 10 seasons out of him if he really reached his ceiling. Maybe, right?
What's the most seasons we've gotten out of a quarterback since '99?
Yeah, it's
probably Tim
5.
Couch. Probably 5.
4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we really shouldn't look at the age of guys. With Chuck, it's probably more his injury history and things like that are a concern. But but yeah, I mean the age is kind of a negative. But yeah, I mean, we really think the next guy we take is going to play here for 10 years. I mean, sure, we hope that things get better and that happens. But
yeah,
man, I'd love to have a quarterback here for 7 years that could play well. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
I think even Bernie was here that long.
Oh, I know. It just doesn't happen. We just don't get guys like that. You're right. I don't know if Bernie played here that long. He may have, but
I'd have to go back and look how many years it was. But
it probably wasn't much more than that. If it was,
doesn't feel like it was that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, I think it starts to narrow down the options for who we're going to see as that rookie quarterback.
I think so.
For the way it feels now, it's probably one of those 2 guys. They're either going to take Shador at 2 or they're going to take Shuck somewhere later.
Yeah, could be. And and Shuck, depending on who you listen to, could go anywhere from 15 to 6th round.
I think the latest I've seen is like 4th or 5th, but
4th or 5th. Yeah, I was exaggerating a little bit. Maybe
he could go anywhere in the draft. Yeah, depending on what teams feel about his age and where his ceiling is and so forth. But I mean, I think he's got the makeup to be a really solid backup in this league for a long time. If you don't expect him to play 17 games a season, so there's probably teams that will lust after that. They would love to have a really solid kid that they could cost control and keep as their number 2 quarterback. So. Yeah, odds of him falling probably beyond the 3rd round are pretty slim.
Yeah, because he does play quarterback.
That's right.
So yeah, very interesting. So
right.
Any other news? Go ahead.
No, that's all. That's all I had on the news front. Okay. So we have one more show that we're going to do before the draft, right?
We believe so. Yeah. We're expecting to record sometime this coming weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll put something out on that when we know when that's going to be.
So we'll see. What changes between now and the weekend. I'm sure things will flip flop 10 times. Before
they will, without any true knowledge
of
what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right. But I feel like we've narrowed it down to some really key needs for the Browns, the types of players that we're looking for, and a 1, 2, 3 option in each of those areas, that we can pretty confidently say there's I think a fairly good chance that at least some of those players are going to end up being drafted by the Browns at this point. Who knows what, if they decide to pull off a trade and their slotting ends up being different, then, all bets are off.
Changes everything. A trade or two. Yeah.
Right.
A trade out of 2 and trade up from 33, and then they're looking at different guys. But yeah,
that's what's going to add some spice to the draft. But otherwise, looking forward to just adding a few really, really good players in this draft and getting the offense turned around for this season. I like what Emory said about, just getting weapons.
Yeah.
Keep adding weapons.
That's right. So, yeah. And like you said, the Browns roster is better than probably better than what people think too already. So, you could say that we won 11 games on the back of a comeback year for Flacco. Well, comeback 5 games for Flacco, and it was a fluke that we won some of those games close. But I could also say that last year was kind of a fluke too. That sort of everything went wrong. The other way. Yeah, the other way. Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes you have everything go right, sometimes you have everything go wrong, and I think the last 2 seasons were great examples of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Hopefully we're somewhere in the middle this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yep.
Anything you want to close with, or was that it?
That was it.
All right.
We'll catch you next time.
All right. This has been the Browns Blitz. We thank you for watching and listening, and we will catch you next time.